Right, good evening. It is undeniable that Japan is one of the most advanced nations on earth. But despite of these advancements, it is immersed in its culture and tradition. And at the very heart of this culture and tradition is rice and rice farming. In fact, rice is so valuable in Japan that the price of rice per kilogram is 5 times as expensive compared to that of the Philippines. In order for us to understand how important rice is to the Japanese people, we must first proceed, or we must first get to know the three facets of Japanese culture, in terms of rice. The first one is rice as an embedded cultural concept. The second one is the role of rice in religion and society. And the third one is the role of rice in politics and trade. Let us go to the first one. The first one centers around rice as a cultural concept. As I've said earlier, rice is embedded in Japanese culture, that it is the cornerstone of Japanese society. In fact, being an agrarian society or being a rice planting society, Japan has given birth to the concept of wa, or what is called harmony. In Japan, everything is shared, from the rice fields, irrigation, as well as labor. Because in Japan, there is very little rice fields, and there is very little arable land. So it is imperative that they learn to share whatever they have with each other. And the next one, we should proceed to rice in religion and a sense of missionary. In Japanese, rice is called gohan. So if you're familiar with the show Dragon Ball Z, Son Gohan, right? So we can, from that alone, we can glean that rice is very important because the lead character is named Gohan. And the word Gohan is also the same as a meal. So when you say rice or Gohan, it is the same pertains to the act of eating itself. In fact, in Japan, they call breakfast is called asagohan, lunch is called hirogohan, and dinner is called bagohan. In fact, for most Japanese households, it is impossible to imagine a meal without rice. In fact, we can also trace the importance of rice in the very name of Japan itself. Japan's traditional name in prehistory is Mizahonakun, which means the land of the water stock or the rice plant. In fact, rice is used for plenty. If you're going to pertain to many or the concept of plenty or bounty, they would immediately think of rice or the word beiku. In fact, they call other developed nations such as the United States and England as I've said, beiku, which means land of rice. So in our case, we all the equivalent is rice of land of milk and honey, if you're familiar with the expression. So that's how important rice is to them. And also in Japan, the emperor is known as a priest king. In Japan, there are three important Japanese foodstuffs made of rice, and these are developed in the auspices of the king. The first one is mirin, or Japanese cooking wine. The second one is sake, or Japanese alcoholic drink, and mochi, which is, if you're familiar with it, is the Japanese rice cake. In fact, the emperor put such primacy on rice planting that in the imperial palace, the emperor himself tends to a rice field. So he has his own rice plot in the imperial palace, in his castle. And the emperor, as part of his traditional or his ceremonial role, he blesses the rice fields before planting. In feudal Japan, sho is the term they call to measure wealth, and sho is also the term that is used to measure rice. In fact, rice was called hard currency. So if we imagine pesos in our country, that is how important rice is to Japan at one time. In fact, the daimyo or the lord or the landlord in Japan would pay his employees or his samurai with rice or in shows of rice. You know, it depends on the agreement of how much they are paid. In fact, Japan is rice is so steep in the culture of Japan that rice bran is used as a facial scrub. For the ladies, instead of soap, they use rice bran. So if you don't, D1 can also be used as a facial scrub, in fact. And also rice paste is used in bookbinding and textile treatment, similar to our concept of gao-gao, if you're familiar, or almiro. So instead of gao-gao, they use rice paste to treat their textiles for strength and durability. Rice is also important in Japanese trade and politics. In fact, in Japan, farmers are very wealthy and very influential. You know that the ruling party, called the Japanese Liberal Party, would actually court or curry the favor of Japanese farmers. Because the more in Japan, the more land you own, the richer you are. In fact, if you're going to go to Japan, farmers are even wealthier compared to bank presidents or bank executives. Because, as I've said earlier, in Japan, arable land is very, very few and very, very scarce. So if you own land that is flat and arable, you're very rich. In rice, unlike compared to the Philippines, rice is a controlled commodity. So there is the concept of beiku in the fact that the Japanese government sets the price of rice. That's how important the price of rice is in Japan. You know, even if Japan imports half of their food, they will never ever import rice because they protect their rice culture or the rice farmers. You know, of course, in Japan, there's also this concept of furasato, which means rice traditions or like land ancestry. So in Japan, rice or rice culture is enmeshed in their ancestor worship or in the way they value their family. So it is undeniable for them, or it is unimaginable for them to give up their rice culture. I hope that by giving you a short background of how important Japan or how important rice is in Japan, you would also understand of how important rice is in the Philippines is also. So I hope we as rice practitioners or people in the rice industry, you become more adept or have more appreciation of how important rice is to us. Thank you very much.